Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, you're going to learn how to play a call-and-response Chicago blues-style composition that's played solo guitar. That means there's no accompaniment required. You don't need a jam track or another musician to play along with you. All you need is a guitar and a pick and a little motivation, and you can do this by yourself. These standalone compositions like this are a great way to learn because, one, we're going to learn all of the why behind the notes so that you understand how they fit together, but two, you have a composition that you can play for other people. So it gives you a little extra motivation to learn it, and it sounds really cool on its own. So I've got the lesson split into two videos, and this video will take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second video and download the tablature for this lesson, you can get that by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP279. Alright, so before we jump into the composition, let me explain the rhythm that happens behind the scenes, which is really the foundation of this whole composition anyway. It's going to make it all make a lot more sense. And this is also a great takeaway for those of you that are interested in learning to play a blues shuffle rhythm. Something that you can start to use, and you hear it in a lot of blues songs. It's a really common scenario. So let me explain what a shuffle is. I'm going to assume that some of you may not know what a shuffle is. If I were to count out just one measure using eighth notes without a shuffle, I would count it like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now if I were to count that same measure with a shuffle, I would say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you can see that there's a little bit of a stagger that happens, and that's what a shuffle is. So when you hear about a Texas blues shuffle, it's played with that little bit of a swagger. And so a common scenario that you hear a lot of rhythm guitar players do is to play on the 1 and the and of 2. So to demonstrate that, you'd hear 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Here's the 4 chord. You can hear just those little bursts of a chord coming in just in those spots, the 1 and the and of 2. That's a different way of thinking about playing rhythm. So if you're stuck in rhythm mode down here like most people do, just remember that you have some alternatives, and that's a really good one to use when the song is a shuffle. And we're going to be using that same cadence in this composition, but I'm going to only be playing on the and of 2. And what I'm playing here, let me just show you the chord. By the way, this song is played in the key of A. I should have said that at the beginning. We're going to be playing this in the key of A, although you could easily transpose this and play this in any key, so you're not locked into A. But what I'm doing is, think of your A bar chord. I'm just playing the top 4 strings out of that bar chord. And that's what I'm doing. And it's an upstroke with the right hand. And you can see what happens. I don't let the chord ring out. I immediately release the tension with my left hand to create like a little burst. And so that's what I'm doing there for that rhythm, is playing that. Alright, so now that we'll get to that in just a second, but now let's start from the beginning of the composition. So remember, we're playing in the key of A, and I started with an A7 chord, and then I'll go right into a lead part. Now, from the timing, let me show you the notes, and then we'll get into the timing of it. But what we're going to be playing out of is A minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. A lot of what we're going to be doing here is in the minor pentatonics. It's going to be pretty basic from a lead perspective. It's really not that complicated. So pattern 1 is right there for minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. We're going to be playing on the 2nd string. We're going to start on the 5th fret, and then we're going to come up to the 8th fret, and then we're going to do a full bend and a release, and then back to the 5th fret. And I want you to pay attention to this first set of licks, like the first 3 that we're going to learn here. They're really all centered around this 5th fret 2nd string and the 8th fret 2nd string. And I got this from Jimmy Vaughn. I've been listening to a lot of old Fabulous Thunderbirds records, and I'm fascinated with what he can do with just a few notes. He can really say a lot with a little. You know, and that's, to me, a lot of what really good blues is. It's not being really fast or doing something technical, but it's the emotional part of it. And I think Jimmy is really a genius at that. So that's the first lick. It's pretty easy. Anybody can do that. Okay, now after that, that's where the upstroke comes in. That's where, and that's going to be on that and of 2. So in actual fact, once I release that bend, that starts the 1. So it's 1 and 2, and then there's the and of 2. The upstroke that I explained. So the only other caveat to this is every time I do that upstroke, it's actually sandwiched in between a muted downstroke on either side. So there's a muted down, the up, and another muted down. So it sounds like this. Let me do it again. 1 and 2. So you can see on both sides of that upstroke, there's a muted down and up. So just remember that once you have that, you have really the cadence for this whole composition. So let's start it from the beginning. You play your A7 chord, and you can wait as long as you want before you start it. That's the cool thing about doing it on your own. See that? Okay, now let's go into another lick. Same 2 spots that I mentioned. So the 5th fret, 2nd string, 8th fret, 2nd string, and then we're going to do a full bend with vibrato. Now that's not easy to do, and if you're struggling trying to bend and do a vibrato, you could always slide up to this note to make it, you know, it gives you a little different sound. But again, I had Jimmy Vaughn in my head when I was doing this, and I hear him do that. Okay, so from the beginning, you can see there it is. There's that muted down, upstroke, and a downstroke around the A chord after that 2nd lick. Now the 3rd lick, again, we're still just playing the 5th fret 2nd string and the 8th fret 2nd string. So we're starting again on the 5, and then we go to the 8, and then I do a bend and release and just end it there on the 8th fret. Muted down, up, muted down. All right, so from the beginning, there's your A7 chord. Okay, so after that, then I came back down here and played, and that gets us to the 4 chord. Now you can see what I'm doing. I'm going back and forth between the 5th fret and the 8th fret again. So all of that we've played really has centered around the 5th fret 2nd string and the 8th fret 2nd string. Now your takeaway should be, don't just memorize that verbatim, but think about that in context. So if you think about your minor pentatonic scale pattern 1, which is what we're playing out of, this is all the stuff that's happening on the 2nd string out of that. So if we were in G, you can start to make all these licks out of that 2nd string in that minor pentatonic scale. So hopefully that starts to like light up some things in your mind where you realize that it's not necessarily always about doing something really, really flashy, but you're starting to really sing with your fingers when you're utilizing just a few notes like that. Okay. Now this starts on the 5th fret 2nd string with a downstroke, and then it's just back and forth between the 8th fret and the 5th fret. And I don't remember exactly how many, but it's in the tablature. It was that many, however many, I don't have the number in front of me. But From there, it's just walking down that minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. So 5th fret, 1st string, 8th fret, 2nd string, 5th fret, 2nd string, 7th fret, 3rd string. So all together. Now once we're here, we're ready for the next chord, which is going to be the D chord, or the 4 chord is a D chord in the key of A. But I'm not playing a D major chord. I could play that, but when I'm playing as a D9, it just has a much bluesier sound. So you take these 3 fingers, you think of your D7 chord down in 1st position, you're going to play that same shape, but this time your middle finger's on the 5th fret, 5th string. And then your pinky comes up here and bars the first 2 strings on the 5th fret. So that's a D9 chord. Now, you don't, if I realize that you're making that chord quickly, you don't have a whole lot of time to come down there and make the chord. So what you could do as a cheat, if you're struggling trying to get all your fingers in, I see blues players doing this, is they just play the top 3 strings. You just bar the top 3 strings there on the 5th fret. If you look at the chord, that's what you're doing anyway. You're just not getting the whole chord. It depends on what you're trying to do with it. I'm comfortable in making the chord. But otherwise, you could do that and no one would ever hear the difference. But the one thing that's the same on this is that you've still got that muted downstroke on both sides of the chord. So you got, just like you did over the A chord. So that, I try to keep that cadence through the whole thing. Alright, so from the beginning. Okay, now we're in D mode, so what I'm playing right here is I'm thinking about your D chord like this, using this D chord shape. It's a little D triad, and that's all I did was I took the notes out of that chord. And that's a B.B. King lick. I've seen B.B. do that, and that's really all that's happening is you're just tracing the notes out of that chord. So I'm starting there, I'm sliding on from the 6th fret 2nd string up to the 7th fret, but then from here it's the 5th fret 1st string, and then we come down to the 7th fret 3rd string, and then muted down, up, muted down. Right? And so that was the 4 chord. Now we're going to go back to the 1 chord. And that's the lick, another Jimmy Vaughn lick. And so it's the 7th fret 3rd string. We're still in minor pentatonic scale pattern 1. It's a bend and release. 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string. Now once I come to that note, I use my ring finger to play the 1st fret. To play the 1st string on the 5th fret. And you can see what my hand has just naturally done there is I went ahead and made the A chord. Once I played that ring finger, put my ring finger down on that 7th fret 4th string, the other 2 fingers fell in place for the chord because you're going to have to play the chord anyway. Right? Okay, so a lot of information already. Let me back up now and play it from the beginning. I'm going to play it slowly to catch us up to that point. So from that 1st chord. Okay, now the next thing I played goes, awesome blues lick. I mean, if you learn nothing else in this entire thing, you gotta learn this one. Because it's in everything. It's like Blues 101. You gotta know this if you're gonna play the blues. So what I'm doing there is I'm starting on the 7th fret 4th string, and then I go ahead and bar the first 3 strings on the 5th fret, but I'm only playing strings 2 and 3. And I'm going to do a hammer-on the 3rd string between the 5th fret, but I'm hammering on up to the 6th fret. So, and you can see what I've done is I've just built the chord. It's the A chord. And then I'm going to bar the first 3 strings on the 7th fret with my ring finger. Again, I'm only playing strings 2 and 3, so we have, and then we go back to that 5th fret, but instead of just building the chord, I went, and it sort of never resolves. It goes between major and minor. So that's a major chord, that's a minor chord. But that's what, and you know, I think that lick comes from a piano actually. If you listen to a lot of blues piano players, you'll see them or hear them doing that. Actually, I don't know who did it first, but I always associate that with piano. So from after we get to the 4th chord, and we come to back to the 1 chord, there's that A again, sandwiched in between those 2 muted downstrokes. So the next thing that happens is we go to the 5 chord, which is an E. And I'm going to play an E9, just the same way that I made that D9. Just slide it up 2 frets. And so what I ended up playing, the lick before that goes like this. And you can see what's happening here is I'm getting out of the minor pentatonic scale and into the major pentatonic scale. I love to blend the two. If you stay in one too long, either of them, it starts to become a little bit too, I don't know, too monotonous, I guess. But I'm starting there on the 5th fret 2nd string, go to the 7th fret 2nd string, and immediately slide to the 9th fret. So you have, and then you play the 7th fret 1st string, and then I go back to that 5th fret 2nd string. That's a great lick, and I use that all the time when going to the 5 chord. Hear how the E fits in there? Same thing, muted down stroke on both sides of it, and the chord itself is an upstroke. Now, to end this first part here, I'm no longer playing the little chord bursts. I'm not playing that shuffle rhythm anymore. I don't need to. It actually kind of works on its own without that because you've already established that. And so the listener's ear isn't looking for that anymore. So let me show you that lick. That's a Freddie King lick. I love this, and I've used this in several other lessons, so this will be familiar territory to some of you. But I'm sliding up to that. I'm starting it here on the 7th fret, 2nd string, and then the 5th fret 1st string. And then we're going to come up to the 8th fret 1st string. And notice my index finger stays down there on that 5th fret 1st string. It's sort of anchored there. So after I played that 8th fret 1st string, I'm going to play the 5th fret 1st string, which is where my finger was. And then it goes down on the 7th fret 1st string. That's where it goes into major pentatonic. So this is just minor pentatonic scale, but this is major. And check out EP130 if you want to know more about blending major and minor pentatonic scale in this particular spot. I did a whole lesson on this. And then middle finger goes down on the 7th fret 2nd string. That's the Freddie King lick. And then you go back to the 5th fret 1st string. Okay, so from the beginning of that lick, ring finger goes down the 8th fret 2nd string, 5th fret 2nd string, then it goes down the 7th fret 3rd string, back to the 5th fret 2nd string, and then that's a bend and release on the 7th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string. So I know it's a lot of information, but obviously it's in the tablature for those of you that have that, and you also have that on-screen tab viewer. You can highlight that selection and slow down the playback if you want to play along. But let me just play through it again. So you have. That's a great lick, man. If you learn nothing else, you've got that, and you can use that in anything. Remember, tie it back to your chord shape so you could play it in any key. So once you get there, I played this, and I don't know where I got this. I'm not sure who to attribute that to, but I'm borrowing the first 2 strings, maybe ZZ Top. It's got kind of a Billy Gibbons thing. But borrowing the first 3 strings here on the 5th fret, playing strings 2 and 3. Ring finger goes down the 7th fret, 4th string, and then watch this. So once you play that 7th fret, 4th string, you're going to let your finger bar there on the 7th fret, and then you're going to play strings 2 and 3. It's a downstroke with the right hand, and then 2 and 3 on the 5th fret. So you have, and then you go back to that 7th fret, 4th string, and you start that loop again. So it sounds like that. Let me do it slowly. Now that's another big takeaway. This lick right here is very useful when playing slow blues or fast blues from a lead perspective. It also kind of works into a rhythm, but you can loop that over and over again. It's also got kind of a Santana feel the more that I do it and hear it. You can do that. You can do some bends and things. I'm just giving you ideas so that you can start to use this stuff when you play. But let's take it from, actually let's take it from the E. And then to resolve it there we go. So that's the 5th fret, strings 2 and 3, 7th fret, string 4, and then middle finger reaches up here and plays 7th fret, 5th string. It's a classic turnaround. And then you could also throw in the chord if you wanted. But I just played the single note. And that's the first time through. Now I played through this 3 times. And so the second time we're going to go up an octave and play some stuff up there. And then the last time I just threw in like kind of a cool rhythm. So I'm going to save those other 2 parts for the second video because we've covered a lot of ground in this video. But let me back up now and play through all of this first half one more time. If you want to download the tab for this and you want to watch the part 2 video, you should look at premium membership. It's actually incredibly affordable, and I put out lessons every week like this. So you have access to the entire back catalog. It's like kind of an endless pool of learning materials. It's everything I know anyway. I keep just putting it out there every week. All right, so let me back up and play this one more time, and then I'll see you in part 2.